Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and today I have a review of a book that I binged in a few hours. And I absolutely loved and adored it, and I had an arc of it. And the book is Coal Gets in Your Veins by Kat Rector. And this book comes out, I believe, on the 1st of October. At least that's what my Amazon told me, and also I have, even though I have the arc, I have already ordered a physical copy of it because I just enjoyed it that much. So what is this book about? This is fantasy romance meets generational trauma meets vampires, basically. And it follows Laurel and Spencer. Laurel is, I think, 35 or 36 years old. She lives in this small town of a few hundred people in Nova Scotia, which is where the author is from as well. So like the book as a whole is very much like a lot of the elements of the book are inspired by the author's home and also the stories from the author's home. So Laurel lives in a town that used to be thriving in the 19th century and probably also beginning of the 20th century because of the coal mines. Although thriving isn't probably the right way to say it, because people generally working in coal mines did not make a lot of money and did not have long lives. And like the trauma of this history connected to the coal industry drags itself until today. And so Laurel lives in this town and she loves the people in this town. However, she also has an abusive husband. By the way, I would look up trigger warnings before you go into the book. The author does have a full list of trigger warnings on her website and also at the beginning of the book, so make sure to check those out. So yeah, Laurel just kind of lives day to day in an abusive, or at least emotionally abusive, relationship, and dies a little bit inside every single day. That is until she meets Spencer, who was a stranger in the woods that she just randomly met at night, which wasn't very smart, to be honest. Spencer is a vampire, and Spencer for the last few decades has also just made sure to survive every day. Ever since he lost his big loves a few decades ago, he has been alone, and he has moved to this town, I think it's called Penny Harbor, because he wants to torture himself in a way, because he blames himself in a way for the loss of his loves. And he moved to this town because the people of this town are absolutely disgusting in their taste, because there's so much coal in their blood. And so he's like, I'm gonna have a shit life here. I deserve a shit life. I'm gonna live here. And as the two of them start getting closer, the two of them start healing. So I have a few slightly negative things to say. The first is a common complaint. It's two first-person POVs. I don't like two first-person POVs. I don't think I have to say that anymore, but yeah, if you don't mind it. And again, I still gave it, I think I gave it 4.5 stars. So like, the two first-person POVs didn't bother me, I just don't like it. Then the next thing is, there were a couple of phrases where it felt like they were used multiple times, especially in the first few chapters, where it felt like it was exactly the same phrase that was like kind of doubled, and it was a little bit weird. It felt more so like an editing mistake, like a copy editing mistake, rather than on purpose, but yeah. And then like, I'm very particular when it comes to pop culture references and the humor of pop culture references, and there were a handful of them in this one, especially when it comes to Twilight. Like, really, it was like 3 or 4 times. I personally didn't really like them, but I also didn't mind it. And then the last thing is kind of when it comes to the secondary plot past the romance, and I'm gonna be very vague because it does go into spoiler territory, and it's kind of a mixed bag of positives and negatives. Because I really liked the way that the secondary plot was introduced, because it was very much a like, oh shit type of deal. However, at the same time, while some type of climax was necessary, I'm not sure if the secondary plot as a climax was absolutely necessary. And I'm not sure if, for me, it didn't take away from some of the messaging. Because, you know, there's allegory and coding. And I am personally a big fan, a lot of times, of allegory as a way, or metaphor as a way, to talk about the horrors of the world. However, sometimes that can also take away from the actual messaging of the story, right? You know, and it wasn't really the deal, like, this is not the type of example where it happened like this in the book, but, you know, when you have monsters as a symbol for an oppressed group of people, or like the prejudice against monsters against an oppressed group of people, which sometimes can really work in the way of, like, you made us into this monster through history, through framing, through narrative. But it can also sometimes not work when it's like, okay, but there's literally this group of people that have and will destroy other people, and now they're an allegory for BIPOC people, for example. So I don't know if that made sense, but there was something along those lines in this book where I'm like, I'm not sure if I would have preferred that metaphor to be there or to not be there. But at the same time, it was kind of necessary because you needed some kind of climax to the story. So now that I've confused all of you, let's get into the positive stuff. So I loved the way this book was written, because basically you had Laurel's and Spencer's POVs, and then also you had little vignettes of life in this town and in this story, which just really helped set the scene and set the surroundings in which Laurel grew up and turned out to be the person that she is. The characters also, just the characters were so well written in this story, and I absolutely loved them. First, Laurel. I felt with her so much, and not gonna lie, I was reading this on the train and I had to fight so hard to not cry. If I was at home, I would have been bawling my eyes out because I don't care who watches me when I'm home. But on the train, I was like, holy shit. Like, I haven't been in an abusive romantic relationship. Things are, like, debatable whether my relationship to my dad was often or is often emotionally abusive, but like with Laurel's issues and in terms of what she deserves and what she can ask for herself, it felt like so incredibly relatable. And so Laurel just slowly realizing through interacting with Spencer what she deserves, and that she deserves more than she allows herself to have, it was so well written. It was so well written, and how subtly Laurel is changing and gaining confidence, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Then Spencer, in the promo stuff, Spencer is kind of described as an Astarion Spike mashup. I don't agree with that. Visually, yes, he's like blonde locks, blue eyes, I think, maybe, I don't know. He has blonde locks anyway. He is incredibly like lean and very typically vampire, very flamboyant. He's very confidently bisexual also. But Spencer is a fucking golden retriever. He is so cute. Like, even before he falls for Laurel, he just is so caring towards her, and like in a very subtle and just casual way. And I loved him so much. I love how Spencer is also very much a subversion of a lot of vampire tropes. He is not necessarily brooding. He has like trauma and a dark past with his lovers and everything. However, he isn't the type of like, do not be with me, I will hurt you. Like, he does question how easily Laurel accepts that he's a vampire, but like, there's a lot of things of like, who is the monster, and you know, how terrible is someone drinking blood actually when you have an abusive husband at home. So it makes sense in a lot of ways there. But yeah, he's nice. He's not the bad boy kind of dude. He's not like tormented by the fact that he's a vampire. He's like, yeah, I've killed people. Like, I had to. Sometimes I killed people because of stupid shit, because I didn't drink for too long and so I wasn't able to hold back. Was it necessary technically every single time that I killed someone? No, not really. You can drink just without killing someone, but whatever. So like, he was just very, very refreshing as a vampire and like as a subversion of tropes. And then also again, while he is very tormented, it's not different in a way from Laurel. They just have their very personal history. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with him being a vampire. And through interacting, they slowly start growing closer and they slowly start falling in love. And that's something where I loved it. I think like, it was at least half the book before there was even any inkling of any of them knowing that they fell in love with the other person. So it was kind of slow burn, I guess, a little bit. But it's... I love them. I love them so much. I love the romance between them, which it's so funny. I'm constantly like, I don't like fantasy romance, right? However, apparently the thing is that I just don't like the fantasy romance that is pushed a lot of times on Book Talk, right? Because this is now, in a few months, the third fantasy romance that I read that I gave over 4 stars, that I absolutely loved. I don't know. I don't even know how to talk about this book without just completely gushing. Also, the side characters, you have Emma and MJ, who are Laurel's best friends. The way they interact with Laurel is also just so precious, because they've seen her just slowly lose her life bit by bit. And that's something that I also just like, it made me almost cry again. I tried my best to keep back and to not actually cry, but they care about Laurel so much, but they also knew that they couldn't be the ones to get her out of this relationship that she's in with Greg, with her husband, because she has to get herself out by herself. And yeah, it was a really cool book. I hope there's gonna be a sequel. I don't know, it also works as a standalone, but overall, I just loved it. I don't know what else to say aside from that I loved it. I love the relationship, I love the characters. I care about them so deeply, like instantly. I don't know, I feel like there were more things that I said in the negative part, but really those were just tiny small nitpicks. Like the pop culture references and the like, there was 2 times where phrases were repeated. Like, so what? Don't really care about that. And again, the setup to the secondary plot, aside from the romance, I absolutely loved. I just am not exactly sure if I'm 100% on board. Like, I'm, let's say 70% on board with how the secondary plot was used. And all of that just pales in comparison how much I love the 2 main characters. Like, so much. Anyway, that was it for this review. I think this video might only be uploaded once the book is already out, so tell me in the comments down below, do you intend on reading the book? If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media as well as to my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where I read 1 adult fantasy book written by a woman or genderqueer person per month, will be left linked down below, so go and check those out. And I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!